All right, so the title of this circle today, semi-circle, is?
A change, something around change, right?
What's the title?
Dealing with change? It's not my language, you know, I'm French. So.
Could you say it? I'm sorry. Embracing change.
Embracing.
Embracing change.
Embracing change. In French is?
Yes, embrasser le changement.
Sounds very...
Embrasser le changement. Ah, on pourrait faire le truc en français, ce serait pas mal, ça. Who understands? Okay, 3 people, right. We used to be like a big country and now...
Like Napoleon, after Napoleon.
After Napoleon, yeah, it went down. Downhill. Well, anyway. Well, change. You want to know something about change? One thing I know about change, do you agree, Kelly? Is that it's happening all the time, even now. My body is changing now.
Yeah.
Not even aware of it. It's changing. Aging.
Regenerating.
Regenerating. So would you... She said, coming back. And in the meantime, everybody needs change, you know? She doesn't realize.
She's changed.
Wow!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we want you to have a good time, okay?
Yes.
We just want you to laugh and have a good time. And we're going to start with a very serious story. I want to share a story because when we were preparing, we just started meeting at 5 or 5 to 5:30, and I just shared a story, and that's where we want to begin, and then we kind of have a couple of ideas, and then we'll see where we end, okay? But we invite you to have fun and keep it light. And now I'm going to give you this very tragic story. Funny. Okay, funny. So, some of you know my husband, Will. Yeah, what do you call him?
Monkey Daddy.
Monkey Daddy, yeah, Monkey Daddy. And Will and I have been together for a minute or two. And a little while ago, we found out that he had to have open heart surgery, right? And we just have like this great relationship. You know, we're not similar in many ways, and then we're very aligned in others. And I'm quite happy in my relationship, but I forgot something. I got confused for a little bit. And so, one day we were at the hospital, and they were going to do a cardioversion procedure. And what that is they restart the electrical current of the heart. I was like, okay, we got this, right? And so they had him in a room, and there was this big lamp right above him. And we had a moment, you know, like one of those Hollywood moments, right? What was the name of the movie that I told you about?
Titanic.
Like a Titanic moment, you know, like when she's like, and so they said, you know, we're going to do this procedure, and you know, there's the line, he's laying on his back, and he's like, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me, you know, and there's like tears down my eyes, and I'm kissing him, and then the doctors go like, okay, you need to walk out, right? So I walked out of the room, and when I walked out of the room, I fell into despair. Instantly. It just felt like I had walked out of the earth and fallen into the universe. And I couldn't recognize things. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it's very disorienting. So you're looking at chairs and you're like, what is that, right? And I was very cold and I felt very dark. So I was lost in the hallway of Kaiser Santa Teresa in San Jose, California, going back and forth. And I felt ice in my heart. And then, deep in my soul, I heard a voice that said, you were born knowing how to smile. And then there was a little bit more like, what you feel when you're with him does not come from him. It comes from you. And then I kind of got back to the hallway. And I realized that I had gotten confused. I had forgotten that what I feel for him when he's in the room or not has nothing to do with him. He doesn't even need to be in the room for me to already get giddy about him. And so what that allowed me to, the gift of that moment was it allowed me to be in that medical journey with him, fully present, because I wasn't afraid to disappear without him. And so, as we were talking about change, Liv said something about there is someone in his life that says that things don't change. And we realized, oh, there is something in us that never changes. And there's something that we experience that is continuously in change. But when we remember, or when we realize, or when we learn what is unchangeable, that allows us to experience change with a sense of grace and gentleness. And so that was kind of the direction that we wanted to take with you today.
That's it. we cracked the code, and now all we are left with are stories, and we love stories.
What part doesn't change?
Oh, that's good. I'm going to write that down. Can I write that down?
Yeah, yeah.
You keep the.
Okay, keep them up.
That's great.
You said what part? You said there's one part that never changes. What part never changes?
Oh. Tell us.
Well, according to my mom, who's 88 and who I am still living with most of the time, nothing changes, ever, never. It's always the same, you know? People are fighting, people are disagreeing, wars happen, people are suffering, and that's a pity. And it's never gonna change.
we're going to need some moment because we was like losing it. Just laugh.
I think I hit the stuff. Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're ready.
But I guess my mom knows that nothing ever changes. Just the surface, and the rest is always the same. Except I disagree a little bit about what doesn't change. Because she has a very dark way of looking at the human nature. There's God somewhere. And God went terribly wrong. Terribly. And she's expecting to face God one day and say, God damn it, you just ruined the experience. Can't you see? It's just a big mistake. And I love my mom. And I think there's some kind of wisdom there that she sees something that, of course, something doesn't change. It's not exactly what she thinks. I mean, in my opinion, who am I to know better than my mom? It's just that it feels like, and that's what I say to her, it feels like she's a little bit miserable when she thinks about that. And she says, of course, because it's terrible. And I say, well, but I don't see things the same way at all. You see, I'm not miserable. So, okay, you put your hand in the sand, you don't see the truth, the hard facts of life. Everything is always the same. I said, yeah, everything is always the same. That's right. But it's the same that you were pointing. I mean, we are the ocean, and deep down in the ocean it's quiet and it never changes. And the more you go to the surface, the more it moves. And it seems like this is the experience that we want to have. Stories. And sometimes stories are like food. And I tell her that. I say, everything you listen to the radio and you watch on TV, it's just stories. No, that's true. It's terrible. I say, yeah, they focus on the terrible for some reason. But for one terrible thing, there's 10,000 beautiful things happening. Look in the garden, the flowers are blooming. Oh my God, it's nothing to do with reality. It has. And I want to add something. Yeah, she's facing me changing, and she's like, I don't understand. There's something weird because she doesn't say something wrong. She sees there's something beautiful. And the only way I can know about it is when she speaks to other people, because to me she doesn't say that. But when I hear from what she says to other people, she says things like, oh, Olivier, because it's my real name. Olivier is quiet, he's so quiet. He must be on some pills. But he looks quiet. He was not that way before. And that amazes her a little bit. More than a little bit. We sometimes have moments at a high level of consciousness, and that's beautiful because she gets quiet and she gets, yeah, you may be right. You may be right at some point. And then she goes and turns on the radio, so anyway, because it's like it seems like an addiction, and I see that she has a huge resistance to change. She's 88. This is possible to understand that. My dad died of Alzheimer's. She had to face an incredible, she would quote, horrible experience of him radically changing. And she was all resisting around. She couldn't cope with that. And I experienced my parents being very kind, no conflicts, nothing. almost 50 years. And all of a sudden, my father going down into Alzheimer's, losing his mind, we could say, which is impossible, changing dramatically. And she was resistant, and she came to be shouting at him, even beating him. And I was not in the principal at this time. I was scared. I was scared that my father was not recognizing me anymore. He would say, "Hello, sir." And I was like, oh my God. This change it doesn't work. It's impossible. And my mom, of course, was living with him, and it was like a 10-year grieving process. Because she knew we would not come back. And at some point he died quite quickly. And it was a great, really, because otherwise it could have lasted for, he had an incredible heart, incredible physical condition. So it could have been lasting like 100. He died at 86. And what it is about change, what do I understand? When we resist the change, we suffer. Change is happening all the time. It seems like, okay, well, that's true, but I don't want this to happen. But it happens. And then I'd like to give the mic to the audience, but I just want to add some little short story about change that changed my way of looking at change. I found a safe word. I don't know if you familiar with BDSM, maybe not. But in BDSM, they have, I don't do that, but they have safe word. That means at some point, if you go too far, you say one word and they stop. That's a game, you know. And the safe word that I found,
Go. Well, we talking about the popcorn.
yeah, it's lighthearted, it is, you know. The safe word that I found is the easiest word you can ever imagine. I was in pain. I have experienced kidney stone. So this is painful. And it's incredible. I love that, by the way. And what I realized at some point, as I was in the most excruciating pain, that the safe word was yes. Anybody?
Come on.
No. Good try, but no.
Pink apple.
No. Yes. 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 This is the safe word. You're in the middle of this situation. You want the situation to be different. And at some point I heard from God, you should just say yes. And everything changed in my experience. It was still very painful, but I was not suffering anymore. I was accepting. Not accepting from a place of, oh, make up your mind, accept it. But realize that this is the experience that wants to be experienced right now. Yes. Do you relate to that? Because it seems a little bit like what you shared. That's the way I understand what you shared. Yeah, but saying yes to the situation with your husband, right? It looks like that.
It looks like. I just want to kind of thread everything back to the question. You know, like when he was saying that he's in pain, he's not feeling good, right? And then there's something in him that comes up with a good idea that helps them. So what never changes is your essence as a human being. It's your capacity, our capacity to have insights that go, yes. We can be in the worst of circumstances, and we can have little ideas that help us, that brings us clarity. What never changes is the fact that we are resilient beings. What never changes is our soul, if that word kind of connects with you. Our capacity to have compassion, our creativity, our innovation, our sense of hope, even in the worst of challenging circumstances, you know? That's what never changes. Like, you're probably too young, but in 1980, there was a song called You Can't Touch This. It's by MC Hammer, right? Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Right, can't touch this, right? And so actually that was my first insight with Dr. Roger Mills. I heard that there's a place in you, he said it, there's a place in you that's untouchable, but it is our essence. And so everything else changes, right? What we think, what we feel, our life circumstances, our partners, our bank accounts, what we eat, our faces, right? The length of our hair, everything else changes. The place we live, what we value changes, our political parties. And so in an ever-changing world, what doesn't change and what feels like solid ground is our essence. Are you hearing something? Just wondering like that.
I'm kind of
You're just nodding, okay. Okay. So when we were thinking about how can you embrace change? When everything is like moving so quickly, I was in Valencia. For those of you that don't know, Valencia had this terrible situation with storms. And things were moving really quickly because we couldn't get here. And it's like we would find a bus and then they got canceled, the train got canceled, the taxi got canceled, and there was a blah blah car service. And it's like, no. And I just sort of felt like I was surfing in the middle of the Atlantic with a hurricane, you know? And it was like, no, we have to do this differently. And you know, when I got here, I did feel a little buzz, like in my being, like, because I was trying to grasp at something secure. And just when I thought I was grasping, it's like, disappeared, you know, like magic. So we wanted to put that together in this conversation. The idea that from the moment you are actually conceived, with 2 cells, you go into 1, and you're born with billions, and by now you have trillions. And every 7 years, you're a new bunch of cells. So you're not even the same group of cells that you were 7 years ago. You're completely different. And as long as you're in form, you are experiencing only change in the physical part. But in the essential part, you never will be different. You can count on that. And so we thought, well, at least we felt like, okay, that gives us a little sense of like, we can do this. now we would like to hear from you. Any reflections about your own journey? Anything that you might have heard since we started? Anything that has helped you experience change? Anything that you've learned during times of a lot of movement in your life? Yeah. Would you like to come up? Sure.
Change. This is the birthday girl. Thank you. Oh, I'm sitting down. Okay. I had a lot of change. I was really just going to say 2 words, but I'll share a little more. My husband and I filed for divorce in 2016. He got sick 6 months later. In 1 year's time, he moved from hospital to nursing home in the United States 8 times. I was raising 2 children, 12 and 15, with a full-time job. And I learned the word acceptance. Because every day was a new adventure. With my job, with my children, the phone call I would get because he had to be transported to another facility. And then he unexpectedly passed away. So I added the word graceful. Graceful change. Because what we resist persists came up in one of my other sessions. And I think I said this in another, I'm not getting a tattoo, but if I was, the other saying I would use would be graceful acceptance. Because everything kept changing. His medical status, what my children's needs were, what my job was, what my other needs were. So it was a good 2 years of acceptance. And that wasn't enough though. Trying to do it graceful. And I didn't come up with that word on my own. I wish I had. One of my husband's friends did. And he said, wow, what a ride that was, given all that was going on. His family was not supportive. They didn't understand, as any family would not understand what goes on between 2 couples, between a couple. They're not living in the house. They didn't understand why we were separating. So one of his friends, after the services, said, that is the most graceful change I've ever seen someone go through. And I wept. Because by adding the grace, it gave me the ability to say, I'm doing the best I can at this moment with what I've got. And some days it wasn't a lot. Not a lot of sleep, not a lot of health, and this was way before my 3 principles understanding. I can't say I wish I knew it then, because I didn't. I can say I did the best I could with what I had at that moment. And I said it a million times to my children. And we struggled as a family. There's been a lot of apologies since my new understanding. And as my children get older, it's beautiful to see how they're starting to see it. Because during the time when we were all grieving, trying to find our way down the grief mountain, if you've ever heard of Dr. Brunet, he described it beautifully. I had to hear him describe it. We were all at the top of a mountain. And I had a broken hip, and my daughter had a broken back, and my other daughter maybe had a broken finger, because she seemed to be gliding through it. It wasn't until 2 years later that she really wasn't gliding through it. And I could see that coming out her now. But we were all on top of this mountain with different broken parts, trying to help each other down. And we just couldn't. We just couldn't. So for me, what doesn't change, I was kind of struggling when you said that, Kat. Gabriela. I'm gonna think about that a lot, because I feel like my essence has changed. There were moments of high hope, there were really low moments of no hope. But as I come back to myself and continue to learn and trust in the universe and find myself, it seems to level out the waves, the leveling out of the riding of the waves. I try to become the drop in the ocean, you know. The drop, if you haven't heard this metaphor, the drop of water never asks, you know, why is the tide going in and out? It just becomes one with the water. And if the drop of water tries to fight the wave, well, good luck with that. I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out low tide. I want to stay here. I want to stay on the beach. That's so much more fun. So for me, it's been looking at my essence as a drop of water. I'm going to pull that together. So, graceful acceptance. Try it out.
How much more time do we have?
Minutes.
A minute.
10.
Oh, 10 minutes. She was just going to say one word. So I want to say something about what you were saying, and I forgot your name.
Leanne.
Leanne, thank you.
Yeah.
Leanne, thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.
Okay, so, you know, we have to use words, right? Because that's how we communicate. So, when I use the word essence, I do not mean our state of mind in the moment or our feeling state either. I mean something, you could call it higher, lower, deeper, whatever you want to call it, right? But it's something more fundamental. And it's so fundamental and so basic that we often don't see it. Because what we do see is what we think and what we feel. Okay? And so, let me just kind of use a biology example. There are things that are happening at a biological level that we're just not aware of. For example, I am not aware of the regeneration of my cells at night in my brain. Like, do you ever think about that when you go to sleep? No, because you do. It does, no, we don't, right? So,
64, yeah.
So the brain apparently at night does like a lot of cleanup, right? And there's regeneration and blah, blah, blah. So a bunch of things happening, right? We are not aware of that. So that's not the level that we're talking about, like really deep level, right? Sometimes that's obvious to us and sometimes it's not. And when we are struggling, it's like when you're driving and the car is here, you know, and there's a blind spot and you turn around and you just don't see anything, right? But it's there. The car is there, and if you move, actually, you will find out that the car is there. So the essence part of it is not, I feel hopeful and positive. That's not what I'm referring to, and I don't know what other words to use, but it is really the life force in us that keeps us alive. Biologically, psychologically, spiritually, that's what I'm talking about. I don't know how else to use, what other word to use, but as long as we're alive, and apparently even beyond, that is something that we can count on. And psychologically, it has an expression. And one of the expressions that it has is like insight, you know, and so you were talking about, I forgot already the word, but it's like graceful acceptance, right?
Yes.
Graceful acceptance. So where does that come from? from somehow you that makes sense and that helped you, right? Where did that come from, that idea? Maybe she could have read it in a book, right? Maybe, I don't know. But maybe also she could have just had the idea in the moment, but at one point, it makes sense to her. It like shows up to her in a way that makes sense. So, what we can count on always is that, is our life force, is this divinity that we are. And there are a million stories of pain. There are a million stories of pain. And in the middle of pain, there's also a million stories of hope. And so we can promise you that life is going to be changing and that you and I will experience things that we do not want to experience, that we would pay not to experience, that we think is going to break us because it feels that intensely. But even when we feel like we're going to break, we will not. And in the next moment, there will be the possibility for hope and clarity and strength. And we can count on that. Is there anyone? Oh, I think we have time. Okay. So, are we completely out of time?
25 past.
Oh, we're completely out of time. Thank you very much for being here.